Nightbitch, a Movie Retold by David Eden. Chapter 1. The Quiet Game. The skillet hit the stovetop with a clang that seemed to echo through time itself. How many mornings had started exactly this way? The mother, she'd started thinking of herself that way, capital M, as if her own name had been swallowed whole by this new identity, watched the pat of butter slide across the black iron surface. It melted slowly, like her sense of self, pooling into a golden puddle that would soon cradle 3 frozen hash browns. Always 3. Never 2, never 4. Her son played at her feet, ramming toy trains together with the focused intensity of a demolition expert. The sound of plastic against plastic created a rhythm. Crash, crash, crash. She sipped her coffee, lukewarm now, always lukewarm, and stared through the kitchen window at the suburban trees. The light of very early morning filtered through their leaves, creating patterns that seemed almost hypnotic. Or maybe that was just the sleep deprivation talking. You light a fire early in your girlhood, she thought, though the words seemed to come from somewhere deeper than thought. You stoke it and tend to it. You protect it at all costs. The butter began to sizzle. She reached for the freezer, her movements automatic, programmed. Inside, the frozen hash browns waited in their cardboard coffin. She grabbed 3, always 3, and dropped them into the pan. The sizzle intensified, a sound like whispered accusations. Hot, she warned her son, though he hadn't moved toward the stove. It was just something she said now, another line in the script of their morning performance. Small hands pawed at her leg. Up, up, always up. She bent and lifted him with one arm, his weight familiar as her own heartbeat. 28 pounds of need and love and exhaustion. She kissed his head. He smelled of sleep and yesterday's apple juice, and continued cooking one-handed. Another skill she'd mastered in this new life. Woof, woof, her son barked suddenly, his face bright with toddler joy. Okay, doggy, she murmured, and set him back down with his trains and his stuffed dog toy. The hash browns sizzled on, browning at the edges. She watched them transform, thinking about her own edges, how they'd gotten so soft, so blurred. When had she last felt sharp? When had she last felt like herself, her real self, not this zombie shuffling through breakfast preparations, a person who will one day pee in your face without blinking? The thought made her laugh, but it was a tired sound, more exhale than humor. She sipped her coffee again, still lukewarm. Minutes later, they sat at the tiny table on tiny chairs. When had her life become so miniaturized, shoveling hash browns into their mouths? Her son ate with enthusiasm, ketchup smearing across his chin. She ate mechanically, tasting nothing. They were like an old married couple, she thought, who had run out of things to say. Except one of them was 2 years old, and the other felt about 90. The garbage truck's rumble announced itself before they saw it. Her son's head snapped up, eyes wide with excitement. Oh, that looks like a heavy bag, doesn't it? She heard herself saying as they watched from the curb. He's strong. The garbage man waved. Her son practically vibrated with joy. He waved at us. Such simple happiness. She envied it even as she shared it, this ability to find magic in the mundane. When had she lost that? Somewhere between the first sleepless night and the 1,000th? The library loomed before them later that morning, all brick and good intentions. She knew the librarian, Norma, would eye them suspiciously. Librarians, she'd learned, viewed toddlers the way homeowners viewed termites. Necessary evils that threatened the structural integrity of everything they held dear. Hi, Norma, she whispered, though her son was being relatively quiet. They made their way to the children's section, and that's when she saw it, the circle of mothers and children arranged on the frayed rug. Book babies, shit, she muttered under her breath. Then, to her son, baby, we should go. But his little hand was already pulling her forward. No, mama, stay. And so she sat, reluctantly joining the circle as the book baby's leader, a man so enthusiastically cheerful she wondered if he was medicated, began strumming his guitar and singing about a duck doing something improbable with water skis. The problem is I just don't enjoy the company of moms, she thought, looking around the circle. There was the one wiping snot, the one singing along with disturbing intensity, the one shooting death glares at her squirming daughter. She spotted one mother who looked different, dressed in black, checking her phone with the furtive movements of someone planning an escape. Now there's a kindred spirit, she thought. Someone who might understand the need for wine on a Tuesday afternoon, who might remember what it was like to have thoughts about things other than nap time and organic snacks. But then the cool mom was gone, slipping out with a whispered, "Thank you," and the mother was left alone with her discomfort as the leader's song reached its crescendo. Her son barked when his turn came to say goodbye. Of course he did. "What's your name, little buddy?" the leader asked with his relentless cheer. "Woof, woof, ruff!" She felt every eye in the room turn toward them. The weight of their judgment, or was it pity, pressed down on her shoulders. She laughed nervously, the sound high and thin in the quiet library air. This was her life now. Sitting in circles, pretending to enjoy songs about improbable ducks, while her son barked and her sense of self grew ever dimmer, like a light bulb slowly failing, flickering but not quite going out. Not yet, anyway. Chapter 2. The Before Times. The aftermath of book babies was always the worst part. The careful choreography of mothers collecting their offspring, loading diaper bags with the efficiency of soldiers preparing for deployment. The mother was already calculating her escape route when the approach happened. "Do you like paint and sip?" The voice was so aggressively cheerful, it made her teeth hurt. She turned to find a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a parenting magazine, matching outfit, organized diaper bag, the works. This was Jen, though the mother didn't remember telling her that. "Excuse me? You're an artist, right?" Jen pressed on with the determination of someone who'd already decided they were going to be friends. "Oh, we chatted at Mommy Baby Yoga, just for a sec, though." The mother had no memory of this. These days, entire conversations disappeared into the black hole of her exhaustion. She could have promised this woman her firstborn, well, her secondborn, and she wouldn't remember. Two other mothers materialized like suburban specters. Miriam, with ombre hair that must have cost more than the mother's entire wardrobe, and Liz, visibly pregnant and radiating that particular glow of impending doom, or motherhood, depending on your perspective. "Like installations?" Miriam interjected, practically vibrating with excitement. "Sorry to eavesdrop. I'm a big art fan." "Are you?" the mother thought, but what came out was, "Oh, are you?" They circled her now, a pack behavior she recognized from nature documentaries. The weak separated from the herd. She mentioned her work at the Modern, a lifetime ago, a different person ago, and they gasped in unison like a Greek chorus. "I used to be a stripper," Miriam announced suddenly, as if this were a normal continuation of the conversation. "Just for a little while, but I just couldn't feel further from that life now." The mother stared, momentarily shocked out of her fugue state. The other mothers shifted uncomfortably, their faces arranging themselves into expressions of studied non-judgment. "The before times, right?" Jen laughed, and they all joined in, that knowing laugh of women who'd traded their identities for sippy cups and surveillance duty. Her son was on all fours now, growling at the other children. She needed to leave before he bit someone. "Maybe we'll see you next week?" Jen called as the mother grabbed her feral child. "Maybe," she lied, wrestling her son toward the door while he writhed like a caught fish. "Please don't have a tantrum," she whispered. "Please don't have a tantrum." The other mothers watched them go with the hungry eyes of women desperate for fresh blood in their social circle. The mother felt like prey. Outside, the world blurred into sameness. Day after day, the routine carved deeper grooves into her brain. Skillet, butter, hash browns. The sound of sizzling that had once meant comfort now felt like static, white noise drowning out whatever thoughts she might have had. She and her son sat at their tiny table, eating in silence. Then they'd walk the same streets, stop at the same corner to watch the same garbage truck, then home for the same book. Good night, construction site. The words burned into her retinas. Skillet, butter, hash browns. The same small chairs, the same small life. Walk, garbage truck. He's strong. Her t-shirt changed colors, blue to gray to blue again, but nothing else shifted. Time became elastic, meaningless. Was it Tuesday, Thursday? Did it matter? The hash browns sizzled their accusations. The butter melted like her ambitions. Sometimes she'd look down and find mac and cheese in the saucepan instead of hash browns, and she'd know it was evening, though she couldn't remember the transition. Her son's diaper sagged with the weight of the day. When had she last changed him? When had she last changed herself? She heard herself cheering tiny wine glasses with her 2-year-old. When had she started giving him wine? No, it was juice. Wasn't it? The days blended like watercolors left in the rain. Construction site. Turn out the light. Great work today, and now good night. How many times had she read those words? Hundreds? Thousands. They'd lost all meaning, become just sounds, like the buzzing of dying flies. Let's play the quiet game, she'd say, desperate for silence, for a moment to think or not think. No, I don't want to do that, he'd answer, because 2-year-olds were nothing if not contrary. She'd lie there, playing dead, while he poked and prodded and climbed. Her body, once her own, now just furniture for his amusement. She'd think about the books, how they'd promised good sleep habits if you just put them down, drowsy but awake. Drowsy but awake. Like she'd been for 2 years now. Neither asleep nor truly conscious, existing in some liminal space where time moved differently and nothing quite felt real. It's my fault he doesn't sleep, she heard herself saying aloud one night, though no one was listening. Her voice sounded strange in the darkness, like a stranger's. I shouldn't be mad at him. Everyone said it, and I just didn't listen because I liked holding him while he slept on my chest like a little warm heater. The words poured out, a confession to the ceiling, to the toys scattered like evidence of a life she didn't quite recognize. But if I had put him down drowsy but awake like all the books said, then he would have good sleep habits for his entire life. I would always have a clean kitchen and a good sex life, and everything would be amazing. Her son wailed, flailing his small limbs. She lay there, frozen, a thought creeping in like fog. Maybe if I don't move, he won't see me. Like she was prey, like she was already disappearing. The next morning, or was it the same morning, repeating endlessly, she found him in the bathroom, drinking from the toilet, his face bright with accomplishment. Oh no! But even her horror felt rehearsed, scripted. Did that seem like a good idea? People don't drink from toilets. Doggies do. He smiled, water dripping from his chin, and she couldn't help but laugh. It was the first real thing she'd felt in days, maybe weeks. That evening, or another evening, they all bled together. He climbed on her back as she lay face down on the rug. Her body, once capable of creating art, of creating life, now just a playground. His feet found her spine, her skull, mapping the geography of her exhaustion. Mama! Horsey. And she did it. Of course she did. She always did. Up on all fours, her son's weight on her back, crawling around the living room while he shrieked with joy. All around the mulberry bush, she sang, though the words came out wrong, forgotten like everything else. That's when he grabbed her back with his tiny fists, and she felt it. Something wrong, something different. Mama Fuzzy, he announced with toddler certainty. She twisted, trying to see, trying to understand. Her lower back, where his hands had found purchase, felt wrong, different, changed. No, I'm not, she protested, but even as the words left her mouth, she wondered. In this life of endless repetition, of days that copied themselves like a broken Xerox machine, each version slightly more degraded than the last, was she changing? Or was she finally just becoming what she'd always been? The thought followed her into the bathroom that night, where she locked the door. When had she become someone who savored the privacy of a locked bathroom door? And tried to examine herself in the mirror. Her reflection looked back, familiar but strange, like a word repeated too many times. There was something there. Wasn't there? Or was she just losing her mind along with everything else? Chapter 3. Nightbitch. The suitcase in the corner of the kitchen meant husband was home. It sat there like a monument to his other life, the one where he wore clean shirts and talked to adults about adult things. The mother stirred lentil soup and tried to remember how to be a wife. Baby, show daddy how you balance your trains. He hasn't seen that. Rough. Grr. He usually does it, she explained to the heir, to the husband who was already deep into his tale of corporate woe. So I really shouldn't have bothered to write out that whole report for him, he was saying, the words floating past her like smoke. Something about Thursday nights in hotel rooms. Something about having a life. She made appropriate noises. Oh, how annoying. While her mind wandered to the fur on her back, to the way her teeth had felt sharp against her tongue that morning. The cat wandered in, fat and indifferent, wrapping itself around the husband's ankles like it owned him. You're still alive, you old furball? She is the cat who will never die, the mother said, watching her son chase the immortal creature into the other room, even though nobody really pays any attention to her anymore. The words hung between them, heavy with subtext neither would acknowledge. Speaking of furballs, she shouldn't have started, but the words were already climbing out of her throat like something alive. I'm like, I don't know. What? No, I shouldn't have brought it up. I'm just having some odd side effects maybe of perimenopause. I'm not sure. Weird hair sprouting up? He laughed, actually laughed, and mentioned her nipples like it was a joke they shared. But she meant her lower back, her toes, the places where something new was growing. She bared her teeth for him when he asked, and he examined them with the casual cruelty of someone who'd stopped really seeing her. Oh yeah, definitely. Your teeth look so weird. This is real and not in your head. The playful slap she gave him was automatic, but underneath, something else stirred, something with claws. I'm sorry, but honey, you always think something is wrong with you. Well, that's the thing about being a hypochondriac. One day I will be right, and then you'll be sorry. He kissed her cheek, and she smelled his other life on him, conference rooms and complimentary hotel soap, a world where people finished thoughts and sentences and meals while they were still hot. That night, they whispered in the dark, their son finally asleep between them like a tiny dictator who'd temporarily abdicated his throne. I can't remember the last time I washed this shirt, she confessed, her voice loud even in whisper. I never washed any of my clothes for all of college, he whispered back, like this was the same thing. You're just like a bachelor. A bachelor. Is that what she was? Someone who'd chosen this soft pants lifestyle, this existence where hard pants, pants with zippers and buttons and expectations, felt like armor she could no longer wear? I'm the housewife I never wanted to be. The truth of it hit her even as she said it. She explained about the suicide watch, the constant vigilance against her son's apparent death wish. Fork in light socket. Walk off cliff. Why did toddlers want to die so badly? Why did she have to be the only thing standing between him and oblivion? It's better than leaving him with those awful ladies at the awful daycare, right? Those awful ladies. She remembered them vaguely, like characters from a dream. The daycare that had made her son cry so hard he'd vomited, the guilt that had eaten her alive until she'd quit her job, given up her gallery work, become this whatever she was now. In the bathroom, she sat on the toilet while he brushed his teeth, their intimacy reduced to shared bodily functions. I thought this is what you wanted, he said through foam. No more long hours at the gallery and crying while you pumped your boobs in a bathroom. Did I want this? She couldn't remember wanting anything except for the crying to stop. His, hers, everyone's. Maybe when he starts school, she heard herself saying. The mantra of the trapped. The promise that someday, somehow, this would end. Yeah, you just gotta hold on till kindergarten. Hold on, like she was dangling from a cliff, like her fingers weren't already slipping. I would kill to get to stay home with him every day, he added, the lie so transparent she could see through it to his relief every Sunday night when he packed that suitcase. You think that, she said sharply. But I can assure you, you would not. Later in bed, the husband slept his untroubled sleep while their son began his nightly performance. The wails started soft, building to a crescendo that could wake the dead, but never the husband. She watched him sleeping, his face peaceful as a baby's, while their actual baby screamed inches away. The rage built slowly, starting in her chest and spreading outward like poison, or like transformation. She could feel it changing her, cell by cell. The husband slept on, his breathing even, a soft snore beginning. How? How could he sleep through this? The son's screams intensified. The husband's peaceful face became an affront, an insult to her every exhausted cell. In her mind, two soundtracks played. His soft, sleepy music, all is well in dreamland. Hers, punk rock, screaming guitars, the sound of someone losing their last shred of sanity. Grrr. The sound came from somewhere deep, somewhere new, or somewhere very, very old. The contrast was unbearable. Him in his cocoon of oblivious sleep, her drowning in the endless need of their child. The unfairness of it all crystallized into a single moment of pure rage. Hey! She shoved him hard, harder than necessary. His fucking binky, do you not hear him? He woke confused, fumbling in the dark while she turned her back, letting him figure it out. Let him feel, for once, the disorientation of being yanked from sleep to serve someone else's needs. The morning brought tentative peace and coffee negotiations. "Did you make coffee?" meant, "Can you do this one small thing?" But he didn't even know how many scoops. 3. It was 3. It had always been 3. "So last night, you were kind of a bitch?" The word hung between them like a challenge. She laughed, quick and sharp, cutting off his relief before it could fully form. "Yep, Nightbitch. I am Nightbitch." They both laughed, but only his was real. Hers was performance, damage control, the laugh of someone who'd accidentally revealed too much. But even as she played along, she felt the truth of it settling into her bones. Nightbitch has always been there, she thought, loading the dishwasher while he helped for once. Not even that far below the surface. The mother raised her head from the dishes, and for just a moment, so quick he'd never notice, her eyes flashed red in the morning light. Deep in her throat, that growl built again, but this time she swallowed it down. She smiled to herself, a smile that showed too many teeth. The weekend passed in forced family togetherness. Park visits, where she pushed swings and pretended everything was normal. Train rides at Frontier Park, the 3 of them playing happy family while something wild grew inside her. But it was the small moments that revealed the cracks. Him asking, "What's next?" with the enthusiasm of someone who didn't do bedtime every night for 200 years. Her collapsed on the couch while he bounced in with energy she couldn't match. "He is a good man," she told the empty room after he'd taken their son up for a bath. The words felt like a lie, or maybe just an incomplete truth. Because he was good. He was. But somewhere between the man who'd carried a notebook full of weird treasures and the man who couldn't make coffee, something had been lost. They'd both changed, but only her transformation felt violent. She remembered him young, in that candlelit bar, showing her his collection of strange beauties. A condom wrapper with "I love you" scrawled in lipstick. Photos of humans being magnificently, gloriously weird. He'd been delighted by the strangeness of the world then. Now he needed toast for bath time. Warm towels, a glass of water. Each request yanked her from her brief moment of rest, and with each rise from the couch, she felt something inside her stretch and strain against its boundaries. "When you're gone, I do this by myself every day," she finally said, standing in the bathroom doorway with that warm towel, seething. His exhausted annoyance met hers, 2 tired animals circling each other, too worn down to properly fight. That night, the transformation was complete, at least in name. She'd said it aloud, claimed it. Nightbitch. The creature that emerged after dark, all rage and teeth, and the exhaustion that went so deep it came out the other side as something else entirely. She lay in bed that night, feeling the weight of this new identity settling over her like a second skin. Or maybe it wasn't new at all. Maybe it had always been there, waiting in the dark for her to get tired enough, angry enough, forgotten enough to let it out. Nightbitch, she thought, and deep inside, something howled in recognition. Chapter 4. The Pack. The Uber pulled away with her husband inside, and the mother stood on the sidewalk holding their son like a talisman against the week ahead. 4 nights of sleep. That's what he was getting. 4 nights of uninterrupted blissful sleep in hotel sheets that someone else would wash. "Say bye-bye, Dada. Bye-bye, Dada," the husband echoed in that stupid voice adults use when they're playing at being children. "Enjoy getting 4 full nights of sleep." She tried to keep the bitterness out of her voice. Failed. His hand on her cheek felt patronizing, even through his genuine concern. "Are you going to be okay?" "No," she thought. "I'm growing fur and my teeth are sharp and I think I'm losing my mind." But what came out was, yeah, I will." Then came the advice. The advice. Structure. Schedule. Make a plan. Treat it like it's your job. Happiness is a choice. In her mind, she slapped him hard across the face. The imaginary sound of it was so satisfying she almost smiled. But in reality, she stood there nodding like a good wife, agreeing to try, always agreeing to try. "Let's have a good day, okay?" she told her son as they turned back toward the house. The weight of the week ahead pressed down on her shoulders like a physical thing. The art day started with such hope. She taped paper to the floor with the precision of someone preparing a crime scene. Finger paints arranged on a plastic plate like evidence. She pulled off his pajama shirt, leaving him in just his diaper. less to wash later. Today we're going to have an art day. Doesn't that sound fun? But toddlers, she'd learned, were agents of chaos. No matter how much you prepared, they would find a way to destroy. The paint went everywhere: hands, feet, walls, floor. What started as creative expression became a Jackson Pollock nightmare, her son running through the house leaving colorful footprints like crime scene evidence. "Baby, no!" The cat, that immortal, insufferable cat, chose that moment to thread between her legs. She grabbed for the dish towel as she fell, pulling the entire towel rack from the wall. The crash was tremendous. Her tailbone hit the floor with a crack that sent lightning up her spine. "Ah, fuck." From the other room, her son's voice echoed, "Fuck, fuck!" She lay there on the paint-covered floor, tears coming unbidden. "Happiness is a choice," she whispered, scrubbing at cabinet doors that would never be clean again. "Happiness is a choice. Happiness is a choice." The words became meaningless, a mantra for the insane. The tears flowed harder. "I need to just enjoy these moments with him," she thought, but the thought felt like swallowing glass. "He's going to grow up, and I will be sad these days are gone. But I'm lonely. I can't believe how alone I feel, considering I'm never actually alone." She cleaned and cried and cleaned. The paint was everywhere. How had he gotten it on the ceiling? Each swipe of the sponge felt like erasing a piece of herself. "What's up with that duck?" The song from Book Babies invaded her thoughts. "What's up with that duck?" Finally, she gave up, lay down on the floor amid the destruction, and just sobbed. Her tailbone throbbed where she'd fallen, a hot pulse of pain that felt almost alive. That night, in the bathroom mirror, she saw it, the red, swollen thing at the base of her spine, angry and wrong. It looked like a cyst, but she knew, somehow she knew, it was something else, something trying to get out. The needle was a bad idea. She knew it even as she sterilized it over the lighter flame, but the pressure was unbearable, like something inside her was trying to claw its way to freedom. The reading glasses made everything too clear as she worked the needle into her own flesh, screaming as she did. Blood, so much blood. And then, hair. Thick, coarse hair matting inside the wound. Not human hair. Something else. It had hair, she told her husband over video call the next day, icing what she couldn't bring herself to fully examine. In the cyst, there was hair. His condescension came through the phone like poison. "It's not a tail. It's a cyst that was exacerbated when you fell, and cysts are known to have hair." "But I want to wag it," she thought, and the thought was so insane, so utterly divorced from reality, that she said it aloud to the empty room after he hung up. "What I can't tell him is that I have such a strong urge to wag it." The park brought unexpected visitors. She was deep in her phone, searching werewolves and mothers and women with tails when the dog appeared. No collar, no owner, just suddenly there, a shaggy brown dog staring at her with eyes too intelligent for an animal. "Oh my God, where did you come from?" Then came another, a golden retriever that smelled impossibly of strawberries. Then a collie, nudging her with its wet nose. They surrounded her and her son like they'd been waiting. "Whose dogs are these?" she called out, but even as she asked, she knew. They were no one's. They were everyone's. They were hers. When they ran, she and her son followed without thinking, chasing after them through the park, running faster than she'd run since childhood, her son's laughter mixing with her own. The dogs led them to the pond and then, gone. Vanished like they'd never been. "Wait, come back!" But they were already wherever dogs go when they slip between the cracks of the world. She collapsed on the grass with her son, both panting, both euphoric. The sun on their faces felt like a blessing. For the first time in months, years, she felt alive. That night, she dreamed of her mother. Not the mother who died too young, leaving questions unanswered, but the mother as she'd been in those strange twilight moments. 9-year-old memories surfaced. Her mother lying in the grass, opera music blaring, tears streaming down her face while she pretended everything was fine. The Mennonite church came back too, her mother's voice soaring above the congregation, beautiful and trapped. "My mother once told me she almost became a famous singer in Europe," the mother thought, looking through her old portfolio. The newspaper clipping showed her own art installation, a pool of ocean water, garbage and beauty mixed, lights projected from above like a mechanical heaven. She put the portfolio away as her son's yells pierced the quiet, always needing, always demanding. The studio gathered dust like a tomb. 2 days later, they returned, not in the park this time, but at her home, gathered on her lawn under the full moon like congregants at some ancient church. 20 dogs, maybe more, all sitting, all staring, all waiting. The mother stood on her porch with a baseball bat she didn't remember grabbing. The brown dog lifted her head, an invitation or a command, she couldn't tell which. "This is a dream," she said to the night air. "This can't be real. This is a game." But dreams didn't make her tailbone throb. Dreams didn't make that spot between her shoulders itch with the need to shed her human skin. She put the bat down and descended the steps. Inside her sweatpants, when had she started thinking of them as restraints, her tail began to wag. The dogs surrounded her, at first gentle, welcoming. She petted them like old friends, because maybe they were. Maybe they'd always been there, waiting for her to get desperate enough to see them. Then the welcoming turned to something else. Teeth found her sleeve, pulling. Paws pushed at her shoulders, forcing her down. She resisted at first. "No, don't." But the pack was insistent. They pulled at her clothes, tearing the fabric, revealing skin that didn't look quite right in the moonlight. She kicked and struggled, but more kept coming. They pushed her to the ground, and everything went black. Not unconscious, but something else. A different kind of awareness. A different kind of being. Morning brought hash browns again, but her smile was different. Secret. Her body hummed with memory, not quite human memory, but something bone-deep and wild. "I had such a weird dream," she told her son, but the lie tasted strange on her tongue. They ate on the porch. She couldn't bear the kitchen's confinement, and that's when her son toddled back inside carrying his prize. A dead mouse, held by its tail like a gift. "Oh, baby, no." But even as she washed his hands, even as she followed him to the door, she knew what she'd find. The pile of corpses on her porch was arranged with terrible precision. Rabbits, squirrels, mice, all laid out like offerings at an altar. Her son pointed with toddler glee. "Bunny." The street was empty. No sign of dogs or anything else. Just her and her son and this gift of death on their doorstep, and the certain knowledge that something fundamental had changed in the night. Something had been let loose. Or maybe finally, let in. Chapter 5. The Hunger. The grocery store fluorescents hummed like angry wasps, casting everything in that particular shade of commercial death. The mother pushed her cart through the aisles, her son riding up front like a tiny emperor surveying his domain. The cart was full of meat, package after package of red, raw meat, stacked like building blocks of her new existence. "I'm hysterical," she said aloud, not caring who heard. The other shoppers, normal people living normal lives, gave her a wide berth. "I'm hormonal and hysterical. I've always thought of myself as like a smart woman who sometimes got a little upset but was mostly cool to hang out with, but not hysterical. But at this point, I'm hysterical. I need to get my hormone levels checked." She picked up a wedge of expensive cheese and brought it to her nose. The smell exploded through her senses. Not just cheese, but the entire story of its creation. Hay, smoke, honey, some fungal musk. Amazing. She could smell the cow, the grass it ate, the hands that milked it. Could I always smell like this and I just wasn't paying attention? Or. The thought trailed off into dangerous territory. She threw the cheese in the cart with the meat and grabbed vegetables like an afterthought. Yes, vegetables are very civilized. Dogs wouldn't buy vegetables. She shook her head at her own ridiculousness, but the thought persisted. Dogs wouldn't stand here under these soul-sucking lights, pretending everything was normal while their bodies transformed into something unprecedented. Are any of these other mothers also losing their minds while they wheel through the grocery store buying crunchy snacks? She asked her son, who responded with his usual demand for cookies. That's when Sally appeared. Sally from her old life, from the gallery, young and rested and whole. The hug felt like an assault. "He's super cute. Do you just love getting to be home with him all the time?" "It must be so wonderful." The mother stood there, weighing her response. In her mind, the truth poured out. The prison of her own creation, the midnight Fig Newton binges, the anger that lived in her bones now like a second skeleton, the fear that she'd never be smart or happy or thin again. And oh yes, the small matter of turning into a dog. But what came out was, "I love it. I love being a mom." The lie sat in her stomach with all the others, fermenting. Back home, the meat situation had become critical. She squeezed packages into every available space, freezer, fridge, wherever they'd fit. The steak she kept out called to her with a siren song older than civilization. The skillet hit the stove with that familiar clang, but this time she cut 2 slivers of raw meat first. The flesh was soft, yielding, perfect between her teeth. Should we do this? Should we be doggies? Her son nodded with the enthusiasm of someone who didn't know they were crossing a line that couldn't be uncrossed. She put the raw meat between her teeth and growled. He took his piece and barked. And then they were chasing each other through the house, snarling and playing, wrestling on the floor like the animals they were becoming. They ate their meat on the rug. When had she stopped caring about furniture? About civilization? About any of it? The steak in the pan burned forgotten until the smoke detector's shriek brought her back to herself. In her studio, she searched for answers in memory. The wax strips on her toes seemed absurd now, fighting what was clearly a losing battle. Her grandmother's box emerged from under the bed like a relic from another world. The photo showed her as a child with Nana, who'd never apologized for her mustache, who'd worn her strangeness like armor. "You never seem to mind your mustache, Nana," she said to the photo, laughing despite everything. "I always felt like you knew things, deep, mysterious things." The raccoon skin from the box felt alive in her hands. The copper teapot gleamed with possibility. Her parents had told her not to encourage Nana's hexes and spells, but she'd loved them. Loved the mystery, the power, the suggestion that women could be more than what they seemed. The memory came sharp and clear. Herself at 9, racing through fields with kittens chasing her. Sitting on Nana's porch while the old woman plucked a chicken, matter of fact about death and life and the thin borders between them. "Can you do anything, Nana?" her young self had asked about protecting the kittens. "Why would I be able to do anything?" But they'd shared that sly smile, the acknowledgement of secrets. She remembered the black book with strange symbols, Nana consulting it while adding herbs to a pot. Pennsylvania Dutch mumbled like an incantation, a dried lizard lowered into boiling water. They dumped it all at the edge of the yard, a border, a protection, a spell, and it had worked. The kittens had stayed safe in the barn, no longer following her to danger. "Anything in the women turning into animals realm," she told Norma at the library, her son flipping through books at her feet. "Transformations, metamorphosis, I'm doing a project." Norma's smile was knowing as she pulled out a worn book. A Field Guide to Magical Women by Dr. Wanda Wasserstein, published in 1978, dog-eared and beloved. "This one is labeled Mythical Ethnography, but it's quite scientific," Norma said. And was that a wink? A knowing look? Or was the mother seeing connections everywhere now, like a conspiracy theorist of her own body? That night she opened the book with shaking hands. The introduction spoke directly to her soul. Research into how womanhood manifests mythically, particularly motherhood, how it complicates, deepens, or denies womanhood entirely. The bird women of Peru lived in trees, the book explained, constructing impossible nests. Women who sprouted feathers in their 60s, but only after their children had grown. The calling of the birds, villages called it when older women disappeared. Her eyes grew heavy as she read about women flitting from tree to tree, learning to fly, finally free. In her dream, she swayed in a treetop, the night sky vast above her. A bird called and she answered, the sound coming from somewhere deeper than her throat. Then she was falling, but peacefully, tumbling through branches like Alice down a hole lined with leaves instead of books. She woke to her son holding his own feces like a gift. "Mama, poop." Even this didn't faze her anymore. What was a little shit compared to the complete dismantling of her humanity? At the park, instinct took over completely. The squirrel appeared, and she was moving before thought formed. "Baby, squirrel, let's get it." They ran together, barking and snarling, scratching at the tree where it escaped. Mother and son, predator and pup, they rolled on the grass in the sunshine, perfect in their animal simplicity. Maybe it's really this simple, she thought, looking at his perfect face. Just instinct. We're animals. He's my cub. We eat and play, and this is life. The dogs watched from across the field, the brown one, the golden retriever, the collie. Always watching, always waiting. At the grocery store hot bar, she piled her container high with meat. Meatloaf, chicken fingers, more meatloaf. The hunger was bottomless now, demanding. "I've never felt this hungry in my life," she told her son. "Ravenous is the word. Ravenous, baby. $32.45 for lunch." The checkout woman's shock was palpable. "I think I'm anemic," the mother offered weakly. At their table, surrounded by normal people living their normal lives, she gave up on utensils entirely. The plastic fork snapped against the meatloaf's density. Her hands found the meat, tearing, shoving it into her mouth. Her son followed suit, both of them face first in their bowls like the animals they were becoming. She barked at him. He barked back. Everyone stared. Mothers, businessmen, the whole careful architecture of civilization witnessing their descent. Or was it an ascent? She couldn't tell anymore. "Hungry?" a businessman asked, half disgusted, half fascinated. She wiped her face, remembering where she was, but Norma appeared like a silver-haired angel, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "What fun it is to have a boy, right?" Norma's voice carried understanding deeper than words. "What a wonderful mother, to have such fun with your child." They talked about playing dogs, and Norma's laugh was rich with memory and secrets. She'd done this too, the mother realized. This wasn't madness. This was inheritance. "Tell me your secrets," she called after Norma's retreating form, but the librarian was already gone, leaving only the echo of understanding and the certainty that whatever was happening had happened before, would happen again, was happening right now to women everywhere who'd been pushed past their breaking point into something new and sharp-toothed and magnificent. That night, she returned to the field guide with new hunger. Hindu mythology's Sarama, mother to all clawed creatures. Greek mythology's Chimera, lion, goat, serpent, breathing fire while tending the hearth. Domestic and monstrous, nurturing and terrible. The book closed with a snap. It was hitting too close to home, or maybe home was hitting too close to it. The borders between myth and meat, between mother and monster, were dissolving like her plastic forks, leaving only hunger and the certainty that transformation, once begun, could not be stopped. Chapter 6. The Change. The porch felt like a threshold between worlds as she waited, field guide in hand, watching her husband's Uber approach. Her son ran to greet him while she hung back, acutely aware of how different she'd become in just a few days. Could he see it? The way her teeth felt too large for her mouth? The way her skin prickled with anticipation of the night? In the bathroom later, she locked the door, that sacred act of mothers everywhere, and turned on the shower. Peace, finally. The water promised to wash away the week's strangeness, to make her normal again. She peeled off her shirt and caught her reflection. 6 perfect pink dots lined up beneath her breasts like buttons on an invisible vest. She touched one tentatively, and it responded like a nipple, sensitive, alive. 6 more nipples. 8 total. Like a dog. Like a bitch. The shower curtain couldn't hide her from her husband's intrusion. "We're out of milk." She kept her back to him, water streaming over her changing body. The accusation in his voice, as if the milk were her responsibility alone, as if she'd failed some essential test of motherhood by prioritizing 20 pounds of raw meat over dairy. "Did you know?" he pressed, holding an empty sippy cup like evidence at trial. The rage built slowly, starting where it always did, in that spot between her shoulders that now sprouted coarse hair. She explained about the shower, the first in 4 days, the 3 grocery trips, the hierarchy of needs that didn't include his precious milk. "You are free to go to the market with our son and pick some up if you want," she said, each word sharp as her new teeth. "And while you're there, get me some tampons, okay? I'm about to start bleeding, and I have a feeling this one is going to be a doozy." He left, door closing too loud, and she smiled in the shower. Then looked down to see blood swirling toward the drain, arrived early, arrived angry. The sound that came from her throat was neither human scream nor animal howl, but something between, something new. That night, she curled beside their son with a hot water bottle pressed to her cramping belly, reading the inevitable construction site book. Her body was a construction site too, she thought. Demolition and rebuilding happening simultaneously. "You just gotta hold on till kindergarten," her husband had said. But what if she couldn't hold on? What if holding on meant letting go of everything else? She stood in the living room doorway watching him play video games, oblivious to her presence. The growl built deep in her chest. In her mind, she lunged, arms raised, eyes blazing red, launching herself through the air to tear out his throat. The vision was so clear she could taste copper. He out? Reality snapped back. She was just standing there, watching. No, it's your turn. The argument was brief but vicious. 200 years of night-nights. His preference for not calling it night-night. Her explosion of rage that sent him stumbling toward their son's room while she collapsed on the couch. The cat jumped up beside her, needy as always. She pushed it away too hard, immediately guilty. I just don't want one more thing meeting me or touching me. Later, they sat together, the hot water bottle between them like a barrier. He wanted sex. She wanted to disappear. Also, I have 8 nipples now and fear you'd be repulsed, she said aloud, but he didn't hear. He never heard the important things. The morning brought a new goodbye, his Uber disappearing around the corner. She and her son looked at each other with matching mischief. The days that followed were pure animal joy. They barked and ran at the park. Ate mac and cheese from dog bowls on the porch. She walked on all fours down the sidewalk, smiling at the horrified neighbor with his pristine lawn and no dogs pooping sign. It's under the bed. You want to see what I got you? The dog bed was extra large, plush, perfect. Her son climbed onto it without hesitation while she explained about doggies sleeping in their own beds, about not needing binkies anymore. She licked his head. When had that become natural? And tucked him in. He stayed. He actually stayed. She sprawled across the entire bed that night, luxuriating in space and silence until her leg began to twitch. Then kick, like a sleeping dog chasing dream rabbits. The morning routine had become sacred, hash browns and playing dog, but now with her hair wild and unwashed, singing Weird Al at full volume in the library parking lot. Dare to be stupid, because what else was there to be? Norma whispered about quiet floors, but the mother didn't care. She sang with the book baby's leader, full-voiced and off-key. The other mothers, Jen, Miriam, Liz, circled her afterward like satellites drawn to a new sun. I'm loving your hair. It's so wild. Thanks, I guess that's what washing it will do. They invited her hiking. She said it sounded awful. They laughed like she was joking. She sniffed Jen's strawberry shampoo and felt something shift. Recognition of a fellow traveler, maybe. Liz was pregnant, glowing with that particular doom. They talked about transformations, about becoming wild animals during birth, about the secret that mothers were gods. We fucking create life, she told them, watching their faces change. We're so powerful. Men must be terrified of us. That night, she cooked steaks while her husband questioned the dog bowls, the collar, the bed. It's just a game, she insisted, but his skepticism hung in the air like smoke. The field guide called to her after dinner. She read about women pushed to their limits, occupying the space between human and animal, the liminal otherworld where magic lived. A dog howled in the distance. She sat up, called by something older than thought. Her body moved without permission, walking through the house in pajamas, out the front door into the night. The dirt in the corner of the yard welcomed her. She rolled in it, grinding her back into the earth, smearing mud across her chin and neck. Her nose stretched forward, scenting the air. The world exploded into smells. Every animal that had passed, every plant, every secret the earth held. She began to dig with hands that weren't quite hands anymore. Her tailbone erupted into a full tail. Her pajama shirt tore as her body expanded, muscle and fur replacing soft human flesh. 8 nipples stood proud on her trunk. Her legs bent backwards, becoming powerful haunches. Paws replaced feet. The transformation was complete. Where the mother had been, Nightbitch stood, silver-furred, magnificent, terrible. She huffed the air once, twice, then leaped the fence in a single bound. The neighbor's pristine lawn called for destruction. She dug with savage joy, tearing up his perfect grass, leaving deep gouges in the manicured surface. The shit she left was enormous, steaming in the cool night air. A signature, a statement, a gift. Then she ran. The streets blurred past as her powerful legs ate up distance. Her heart hammered a rhythm of freedom. Birds startled from trees as she passed, their flight visible in the air currents. The night sang with scents and sounds no human could perceive. She was free. She was powerful. She was exactly what she'd always been underneath the construction site of motherhood, wild, hungry, and absolutely magnificently alive. In the small park, she caught the rabbit's scent before she saw it. Her body dropped into a stalk. muscles coiled. The rabbit froze, knowing death when it saw it. She pounced, jaws closing on warm flesh, shaking her prey until its small bones snapped. Blood filled her mouth, copper and life and satisfaction deeper than any meal eaten at a tiny table with tiny chairs. This was real food. This was real life. She carried her prize home and buried it in the hole she dug earlier, saving it like a secret. The transformation back was gentler, her body reluctantly resuming its human shape as she approached the house. In the shower, mud and blood and bits of fur swirled down the drain. She smiled, feeling more herself than she had in years, or maybe feeling herself for the first time. "Where'd you go?" Her husband stood in the doorway, sleepy and confused. "I went for a run. I needed to clear my head." He saw the dirt, the wildness in her eyes, and something in him responded. He joined her in the shower, grabbed her hair, kissed her neck. They made love like animals while the last evidence of her transformation washed away. But it wasn't gone. It was just hidden, waiting for the next full moon, the next breaking point, the next time the mother needed to become something more than human to survive being human. The change had come. There was no going back. Chapter 7. Blood and Truth. The morning after her husband left again, she made breakfast like always. Skillet, butter, bacon this time. Pounds of it, the grease popping like tiny fireworks. The cat wove between her ankles, mewling its eternal complaint. "Don't," she warned, kicking it aside. The can of cat food, when opened, released a stench that made her gag. "This is what you want? I'm gonna throw up." She scooped the gray mush into the bowl, growling under her breath. Everything was normal. Everything was fine, except for the way her son watched her with knowing eyes, except for the way the bacon smelled like heaven and the cat food smelled like death. That night, she jolted awake to the scent of blood on the wind. Outside, the pack had returned, all of them, arranged on her lawn like congregants at a midnight mass. The brown dog and the collie approached with offerings. A raccoon, its neck twisted at an impossible angle, and a rabbit, still warm. Nightbitch accepted their tribute with the posture of an alpha. Ears up, tail high, she bit their necks in dominance until they submitted. Then came the ritual, the pack enveloping her in a frenzy of bodies, howling and wrestling, a celebration of their queen's return. The cat's meow from the doorway was like nails on glass. What happened next came from a place deeper than thought. Nightbitch lunged, jaws closing on the cat's throat. She shook it like the rabbit, feeling bones snap, tasting blood that was familiar. Family blood, pet blood, the blood of something that had shared their home for years. The cat dropped lifeless on the porch. Steam rose from its body in the cool night air. Morning brought horror in high definition. The mother woke human, her son beside her, the night's events filtering back like a half-remembered nightmare. But the front door hanging open and the blood-smeared porch told the truth. "Oh fuck, oh fuck, oh fuck!" Her son appeared, wrapping himself around her legs. "Kitty! Oh honey!" "Eat the kitty?" The words hit like physical blows. She knelt, turning him away from the carnage, staring into his innocent eyes. "Oh honey, no. We would never eat the kitty. No. I think maybe our doggy games have gone too far." Even as she said it, she felt the lie. The games hadn't gone too far. They'd gone exactly where they needed to go. But how could she explain that to a 2-year-old? How could she explain it to herself? Poor Kitty died, but we didn't want her to die. This was a terrible accident. Accident. The word tasted wrong. You don't accidentally transform into a monster. You don't accidentally kill the family pet, but what else could she call it? The funeral was small and sad. She sobbed as they piled dirt over the tiny grave while her son ran around the yard barking, already forgetting. The guilt sat in her stomach like a stone. At the park the next day, paranoia consumed her. Every moment felt dangerous. When her son disappeared over a hill, panic seized her throat. She ran, searching frantically, finally finding him wandering in the meadow. She collapsed, holding him, sobbing into his hair. "I'm so fucked up. I'm so fucked up." The library felt like a sanctuary until she tried to return the field guide. Norma's smile was knowing as she refused it. "That's not one of ours. No catalog card. I don't know where this book came from." They held hands across the desk, two mothers understanding something unspeakable. "You've seen life in color now," Norma said. "There's no going back." That night, she tried to tell her husband about the cat over wine in the dark kitchen. His suitcase waited in the hall like always, but everything had shifted. "The cat died and you didn't even call me?" She explained about the blood, the burial, the trauma. But how could she explain the satisfaction she'd felt? The rightness of powerful jaws closing on prey? "I guess I'm getting used to doing things by myself," she said, and watched his face change. The conversation spiraled from there. She paced the kitchen like the predator she'd become, laying out her case. She wasn't okay, she wasn't happy, and he'd been so quick to support her, giving up her art, too quick. No protest, no encouragement to continue. "Because somewhere you were getting what you've always wanted," she accused. "For me to be a stay-at-home mom, just like your mother, and her mother." He denied it, but she could smell the lie on him. She was trapped in a 1950s marriage, washing his underwear while he lived his real life somewhere else. The unfairness of it burned like acid in her throat. "You feel trapped?" she snarled. "Do you have any fucking clue how trapped I am?" His counterattack was swift and brutal. She wasn't the person he'd married either. That person had been weird and excited about life, not someone who watched reality TV and passed out after 2 glasses of wine. "What happened to that girl?" he asked. "The one I married who made me think about the world in new and challenging ways." "She fucking died in childbirth," she spat back, "and she's not coming back." The silence that followed was deafening. They'd said things that couldn't be unsaid, crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. Like the transformation itself, there was no going back. He slept on the couch that night while she stood on the lawn, waiting for the dogs that didn't come. Even they knew when to leave her alone with her choices. The separation conversation was calm, rational, everything their marriage hadn't been. She needed space to find herself again, to dig around in the dark. He wanted to know if she regretted having their son. "No," she said, and meant it, "but I had no clue what we were actually getting into." His weekend with their son was a disaster. She could smell on them when they returned. The extended stay America, he reported, was full of sad divorced dads and confused children. No moms in sight, kids getting sunburned because nobody remembered sunscreen. She wanted to laugh and cry simultaneously. This was what she'd wished for: time alone, space to breathe. But the house felt wrong without them both in it. Even the cat's absence echoed in the empty corners. That night, she tried to work in her studio. Paints and canvases emerged from closets like artifacts from another civilization. But when she looked at her old portfolio, the ocean installation, the newspaper clippings, she saw a stranger's work. That woman was gone, devoured like the rabbit in the park. What remained? A mother who killed cats. A wife who drove away her husband. A woman who turned into a monster when the moon was full and sometimes when it wasn't. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through pictures of her son. His smile made her chest ache. She was destroying everything to save herself. But what if there was no self left to save? The dogs found her there, surrounded by the debris of her former life. They didn't enter the studio. Even monsters respected some boundaries, but she felt their presence like a promise. Or a threat. Tomorrow she would pretend to be human again. Take her son to the park, make small talk with other mothers, buy groceries that included vegetables and milk. She would perform motherhood and wifehood and personhood like she always had. But tonight, with her husband gone and her son asleep and the moon calling through the window, she let the truth settle into her bones. She was Nightbitch now. The mother was just a costume she wore, increasingly ill-fitting, increasingly transparent. The transformation wasn't something happening to her anymore. It was who she was. Who she'd always been, maybe, just waiting for life to strip away enough layers to reveal the creature beneath. She looked at her hands, still human, for now, and wondered how long she could keep pretending. How long before the dog became all there was. How long before she forgot she'd ever been anything else. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, she felt only relief. Chapter 8. The Pack. The first night alone felt like breathing after years underwater. She stood in her studio, paint-covered hands trembling with possibility. A massive canvas lay on the floor, washed in purples and greens like bruises healing. The bones she'd collected, gifts from the pack, remnants of her kills, waited in neat piles. The gold paint called to her. She arranged a raccoon skeleton on the canvas, each bone a word in a language she was only now learning to speak. This wasn't the conceptual art of her former life. This was something raw, primitive, true. When her husband brought their son back Sunday morning, she was showered, dressed, human. The kitchen gleamed. Pancakes waited on the table, a peace offering shaped like normalcy. "We had a good night, didn't we, dude?" her husband said, but his exhaustion told a different story. The extended stay America had broken him a little. "Good. It was really wonderful, actually," she said about her night alone, and watched him deflate. They ate at the tiny table, 3 people pretending to be a family, but something had shifted. She could smell it on them, her son's confusion, her husband's dawning realization that she didn't need him the way he needed her. The weeks that followed blurred into routine. Fridays became sacred. Her son went to his father, and she became herself. Sometimes that meant art. Sometimes it meant running with the pack. Sometimes it meant both. The other mothers, Jen, Liz, Miriam, became unexpected allies. Pizza nights where their children watched movies while they drank wine and spoke truths they couldn't say anywhere else. "I let the fish die," Liz confessed one night, benign neglect. "I accidentally let Percy fly away," Miriam added. "The parakeet. I hated that bird." They understood, these women. Maybe they weren't turning into dogs, but they were transforming too, fighting their own battles against domestication. "How's it been so far?" Miriam asked about the separation. "He's taking him for the night tomorrow night," the mother said. "It will be the first time I've ever been away from my baby overnight." The lie came so easily now. She'd been away from him every time she transformed. But that was different. Nightbitch was still his mother, just with sharper teeth. The hikes with the mothers became hunting expeditions in disguise. While they chatted about preschool applications, she scented the air for prey. While they complained about their husbands, she marked territory. "Sometimes I fantasize about running away," she told Jen one morning on the trail. "A faded beach chair and a good book and not talking to anyone for a week." "That's not terrible at all," Jen replied, and shared her own bathroom rebellion story. These women were her pack too, she realized. Different from the night pack, but no less important. They understood the particular cage of motherhood, even if they didn't know about the literal transformation. Her art evolved with each passing week. The gallery installation took shape, massive self-portraits of women as animals, herself as Nightbitch, covered in dirt and blood, howling at an unseen moon. Jen as a tiger, body scarred from battles. Miriam as a wild boar. Liz as a moose. Norma as an owl, wise and watchful. Between the portraits, she arranged taxidermied animals like offerings. The piece was about violence and motherhood, transformation and power. It was about becoming something monstrous to survive something impossible. The night of the gallery opening, she stood among her work, watching people react. Hip art friends mingled with suburban mothers, all circling her portraits with fascination and fear. "I feel really seen," Jen said, raising a glass to her portrait. "Thank you." Even Naya and Freda from her old life showed up, offering backhanded compliments that no longer stung. She was beyond their approval now. Beyond anyone's. That's when she saw him, her husband, alone in the corner, staring at her self-portrait with something like recognition. He understood now, maybe for the first time, what she'd been trying to tell him, what she'd had to become to survive their life. Later, they cleaned the gallery together in silence that felt like a conversation. Finally, he spoke. "I didn't get it. I didn't see all that you were giving up." He gestured to her work. "Look at what you fucking did. I feel like I've been let into a whole universe that I was totally blind to." He dropped to his knees. This man who'd dismissed her transformation, who'd slept through her screams. "You are the giver of life. I should have given that so much more respect." They cried together, and she forgave him a little. Not enough to go back to what they were, but enough to move forward as something new. Co-parents, former lovers, 2 people who'd created life and nearly destroyed each other in the process. "I'm proud of you," he said before leaving, and meant it. Alone in the gallery with her portraits, she felt complete for the first time since giving birth. The women gazed down at her, all of them magnificent in their monstrosity, all of them powerful in their transformation. The pack was waiting when she got home. Not just the dogs this time, but shadows of women too. Generations of mothers who'd made this choice, taken this path. They surrounded her house like guardians or witnesses. Inside, she built a fort with her husband and son. They huddled together with flashlights, playing bears. When she roared, it was real. When he roared back, she heard the echo of what he could have been if the world had demanded transformation of fathers too. "I want blackberries and Santa," their son announced, leaving to gather imaginary food. Under the blanket fort, she and her husband became animals together one last time. Not the violent creatures she became at night, but the simple animals they'd always been beneath the costumes of civilization. Their son returned with impossible treasures, Santa's head among them, and they laughed like the family they'd never quite managed to be when they were trying so hard to be normal. Later, she found herself in labor again, but this was different from her son's birth. She squatted in her living room, powerful and primal, her husband holding one hand while the midwife reminded her of her strength. "Your mother did this. Her mother did this. It's time to dig deep and find the strength because it's time to meet your daughter. Now!" The sound that tore from her throat was pure Nightbitch, part scream, part howl, all power. She was neither human nor animal, but something between, something more. A mother, a monster, a magnificent merger of both. When her daughter emerged in a rush of blood and fluid, the mother understood finally what she'd been becoming all along. Not just a dog, not just a woman pushed too far, but something ancient and necessary, a creature capable of violence and tenderness in equal measure, of tearing apart and creating life with the same body. She looked at her newborn daughter and saw the future. Another girl who would light a fire in her chest and tend it carefully. Another woman who might one day need to transform to survive motherhood's impossible demands. Another magnificent monster in waiting. The pack howled outside, welcoming their newest member. Inside, surrounded by her strange family. Her artist husband who finally saw her. Her wild son who taught her to play dog. Her fierce daughter who would know from the start that mothers were magic. The mother who was also Nightbitch smiled with all her sharp teeth. She'd lost everything to find this. Her old self, her marriage as it was, her careful human life. But what she'd gained was worth the price. The knowledge that women were never just one thing. They were the dogs that hunted and the mothers that nursed. They were the artists who created and the monsters who destroyed. They were magnificent in their multiplicity. The transformation was complete, not into dog or human, but into something that could be both. Something that had always been both. Something that would teach her daughter and her son that survival sometimes meant showing your teeth, that love sometimes looked like violence, that motherhood was the most brutal and beautiful transformation of all. Outside, the pack settled in for the night, guarding the house where their queen nursed her new cub. Inside, the family that had broken apart and reformed into something stranger and stronger huddled together in their fort, animals all, magnificent in their wildness, perfect in their imperfection. The mother who was Nightbitch closed her eyes and listened to her children breathe, to her husband's steady presence, to the pack's protective circle. She was everything she'd never wanted to be and everything she'd always been. She was home,